All right, good afternoon.
Hello.
I heard the rumor is if you come to one of these sessions, you can get free drinks afterwards. You don't come to one, so we're going to do your recruiting in the hallway in the meantime. So we're going to talk a little bit about automation today, particularly about this thing called the workforce. It's important to go together. And Steve, Smiley and I are going to tag team. We'll give an introduction of both of us here in a second. So let's go ahead and dive in. Again, our objectives, we're going to talk about best practices, have some two-way dialogue, we're going to share some stories, keep it interesting for you. Enough about me. I run a consulting group for WMEP in manufacturing for 30 plus years in various roles. About his team about 3 miles wide. And I'll tell you about Stephen here in a second. So that's my background. Stephen, everybody has back over there. You can tell me your background.
Lots of years in manufacturing, leading organizations, and basically one of the things that I have found myself doing my whole career is transformation. And today, in a lot of different organizations, leading them through transformation. One of the things we're going to talk about today is automation and the transformation there. My experience, most of my examples and stories will come from a company in Racine called Incinerator, Emerson Electric's crown jewel. Make 95% of the world's garbage disposals. And I do a lot of automation and building the context.
Great, thank you. So we talk about automation today. We're going to talk very broad. Automation can be a cobot or it can be a fixed robot. Lots of different things. So we're going to talk pretty broad. Okay, so we're going to start a little different. And you can fill in the letter for the after start on. Okay? AKA how to disengage in whatever offer your workforce. Okay, so we're going to talk about worst practices first. Again, sometimes define what not to do. So let's go and talk about what those are. See if you've ever experienced any of these. Okay? No tech support plan. No communication plan. You just do it. No plan to find around the project or the scope. Very common. No training for employees. Because we don't know how automation fits into growth strategy, if we have one, and if it doesn't fit within it. Impact on pay levels, incentives is unknown. Okay, so it's kind of important again to our workforce. Automated bad process. We hear a lot about process at the keynote session. Again, don't automate a bad process. One of our favorites, not know how automation impacts their job. Okay, so how do you avoid a needs barrier if you don't know what it means? Okay, secretive, don't get employee input. Most importantly, don't explain why. So any one of those, as we've seen, we work with hundreds of manufacturers, and we hear the stories many times. The stories of things that didn't work well. We see what happens when they do work well. These are some real learnings. So what we're going to do now really is start to flip these around and talk to them. Stephen, did you want to add anything to this one before I go ahead?
No, why don't you go ahead? We'll join you.
All right. So tech support. I think one of the key things that we'll talk about is getting wins under your belt. Realize this is a journey for automating. Go for smaller ones at first, ones that are high probability to see wins. Because it's just like a football team. We won't talk about yesterday though. It's like a football team. If you get some positive momentum, that's a good thing. And again, it's really important again to keep the equipment running. Again, automation is going to have to be maintained. And so how do we have support for it? Part of the purchase decision should be, how do we keep it going? How do we do it internally? How do we use external resources? It's like anything else. So if you can be able to buy it and never maintain it again, or provide support.
So think about this one, for example. I heard it with Sarah and also heard it with Ron in the main breakout. We often focus for automation on the benefit, right? And Emerson was always talking about labor containment, material containment. Labor containment, more work with less heads, right? Correctly, that was our mission. And for example, in this one, thinking through that, and we focus on the end, but we don't focus on, okay, when it's up and running, who's going to be the maintenance? So one story I have to share is we used to do auto termination boards, fractional horsepower boards. We used to make them automatically, and then we had all these women, and they had good dexterity where they actually clip the turbo, clip the motor, and then do a high pot test and a continuity test. And we wanted to automate it. Never in the world had it been automated. Emerson Electric, we took it to the board, and the board said, never been done before, you can't do it. We spend so much time finding a better to make the machine, telling the board what it can do, working on the timeline. We forgot when the machine came in, who's going to run the thing? So what happened in our story? We brought the thing in, piece of automation. It was wonderful until it broke. And then I had no way to fix it. And so the guy that actually developed the technology had to sleep in the van. You know, there was a 24/7 operation. And that didn't last very long, right? So we had to develop a training afterwards who we was going to train to do that. So it took us about 6 months to do the transition. Up front, just to think about who's going to actually support it once it's in the house. And that was a painful lesson. So as we went along, we talked about who's going to run it when it's here. You have to think about 3 things when they run. 1, who's going to do the simple fixes? The person right there, who's going to pretend? 2, when you have a changeover, who's going to do those parameters? And 3, if there's a really big technology changeover or improvements made, who's going to do that? So 3 different ways. So you have to think about that in that plan.
So you'll see the escalation here at the bottom. And again, think about this perspective. We talk about workforce. We've got to know what people's hearts and minds. Now, let's see one do this great piece of automation again. All the installing, get it turned up 3 weeks later down. The worst thing possible is you find out it's been down for 5 days and no one said anything. Because what happens when you do the second one? Are people all behind it, or are they really doubting how it's done? They shouldn't. So again, the more we can anticipate, this gets it off to a good launch. Second, we're going to talk about change. Anybody ever talked about change management before? We all go through it. Anytime we go through a major change in our life, in this case it's a change regarding how we do work, and sometimes it can be viewed as a risk. Our first reaction could be, we get a little depressed about it, we get angry about it, we go through this great trough that's right here, and then we start figuring out what's it mean to me, we start to accept it, and eventually you say, you know what, it's part of how I do business. And the more we recognize that and help people walk through the steps. So change management is very important.
Yeah, and think about it this way, as you go through the process, one of the things we do and help our clients is the ADKAR approach. And ADKAR means something very specific. A, awareness, do they have awareness of the change? D, ADKAR is desire, do they have the desire to do the change? K is the knowledge, do they have the knowledge? Then A is, do they have the ability? And they have the knowledge, but do they have the ability? And R is the repeat. So to go through that ADKAR process, think about that as you go forward. And when going and using that type of process will help you not only at a program level, but at an employee level as well. And if you need more information on how to do assessments to see how people are going through change, we can help you. So, very important.
But again, be very planful about the change. So this is, again, often what we do in projects. We recommend for new projects, you have to build it in there. We've got a steering team. We talk about what the change is going to be, the scope. We talk about stakeholders. So imagine bringing a piece of automation in, the maintenance gal never heard of it before. It's the first time she ever saw it. That's a great way to define it, right? Or, the purchasing agent found out we brought, we have all this gets an invoice. What's this for? So again, the more we think about how it's going to impact people, get them to be excited for it, have fun with it. Let's not forget to have fun. We don't say that enough. But again, be very planful. We evaluate it. We understand what the needs are, what's going to change. We have a plan. We integrate that into automation. So it's not just getting the concrete footer and the electrical foot in. It's how we're preparing our people and getting ready for the change. How we communicate. We have to understand risks. Anybody here work at a place where there's somebody who's an opinion leader who doesn't have the title? Okay, I see people nodding. It's important to identify who they are, engage them in it, because they can submarine things very quickly, or they can get behind it. So again, the whole idea is to be very planful in how we do that. It's back here, make adjustments. It's never going to be perfect when we get started. Adjust as we go. Project team, roles and scope. Have a team in place, cross-functional. So again, many times, again, it doesn't just belong to manufacturing, or just to the operations area. We have maintenance, we have procurements involved, we have human resources involved. So make it cross-functional in nature. Define roles. What's the scope again? What does done look like? How far do we go? Give them support. This one right here, celebrate wins. Okay, it sounds goofy. Give it a name. Have some fun with it. Do t-shirts. Again, what does it take to get people engaged? And again, automation, we often use this as a technical thing. In many ways, automation also helps us solve this workforce challenges we have. And the more we can make it part of who they are, part of the thing, they're going to welcome it versus fight. So the whole idea here, celebrate wins and communicate.
Couple things. Think about a project charter, but before you start a project, sit down and take a look at your stakeholders. Who are the close stakeholders to this project that really need to know? Those are the people you reach out to and grab as a team, as a steering team, to help you plan and develop a project charter moving forward. So think about it. Who are the people that it's going to directly impact, and how is their power related for their influence? Both in the office and at the shop floor. How do you do that, and how do you invite them? Yeah.
Operator training, training your workforce. Again, part of this is investing in the workforce, doing it in advance. Again, we often talk about there's no place for people to grow upwards. Here's a way to grow perhaps upwards, but also grow laterally. And the more again we can do this in parallel, understand here's what we're going to need for training. Send the people out to get training in advance, have them be part of the process, such as what this says. You can simultaneously training existing workers with incremental skills. Because again, if we do this right, we've heard of companies that can double the amount of sales they put through with 10% more, 10% greater workforce. And guess what? The wages are going right up. One of my favorite things is to drive into a manufacturer in the state and have almost every vehicle being an F-150 less than 2 years old. That's telling me something. Parking lot telling me a whole lot about how things are going. And often what I see there is this little engagement. There's training in advance, they welcome their partner. Steve, you want to hit anything?
Yeah. So a story on this one, training your people. I have a story. We talked about making garbage disposals. In low volume garbage disposal manufacturing, we use cells. And they were rude cells, and we wanted to automate them. And we had done a lot of automation on high volume product, and we wanted to incorporate it into cells. We got a group, cross-functional group together, stakeholders, and some cell operators. And we wanted to do their involvement in the cells, we wanted their knowledge, and we wanted their buy-in. So we started to add to that buy-in. And we started getting a training plan. And I had 2 women who were really good cell operators. And they were being very difficult through the whole process. And it was like 4 or 5 months into this. And I sat down and I said to myself, I said, you need to talk to them to see what's going on. So I found out to them and said, why being so resistant to this change in the training process? We're going through the training process and understand the automation. And they were best friends. And they came to work to do what? Talk. They didn't really want the paycheck. They didn't want this automation either. So you think about it. Sometimes you have to read people who talk about the ad card. They didn't have this automation. They really wanted their old job back in the training process. And so when we finally said, we really like each other, we don't want this new automation and all these things because we won't be able to talk to each other. We found a good job where they can work together and they can still have a relationship, and they can still talk. It was in the warehouse, where it was very quiet. But understanding that in the training process, sometimes you go through this process, and people will say, I don't want to do this, just understanding that.
It comes back to ask the question why. To be sensitive to what they're answering. Because again, we training approach, identify who, have objectives in place, obviously. Again, instructional approach, use different channels, again, different people learn in different ways. Some people like pictures, some people like text, some people like hands-on. And again, keep it simple. Anybody looked at an owner's manual for a car, understands what I'm talking about. Automation it supports growth strategy. Again, one of our challenges, we see this all the time, Tim goes down the street, and sees his buddy has to do one of these, I'm gonna get one now too. Why get one? Well, because he's got one. I mean, that happens, no different than cars. And again, how does it support where you want to go? And there's nothing worse than automate a line or an area, and you find out that's an area that the company wants to move away from. So again, how does it support where we want to go? Because again, it's not automation, we don't just do it for itself. It's to help us improve our overall results and help us grow.
Yeah, we have an opportunity to see a lot of manufacturers. It's surprising, like George says, the number of companies we go and do a shop tour. We'll see a panic robot in the corner, and it's just sitting there. It looks really nice. It doesn't look like very well used. Somebody went and bought it on the idea that they had a good idea. And then it just says, yes.
Just real quick, back to the last point, with the training and the culture part of it. How much of that is done by the company that's instituting the automation versus the company that's actually bringing the automation in? Or how much, I guess maybe, how much of that is done by the company versus how much of that is done by the vendor? Or does the vendor do any of that?
It depends. It depends on the nature, how advanced the robotics is. It's all robots. For automation, it isn't always just robotics. Many times it should be a partnership. Because again, don't assume that somebody can install your equipment is going to take care of all the training. You need to be engaged in the process. So minimally, it's got to be a partnership.
Do you see any vendors providing kind of the cultural part, kind of soft?
No, it's technical.
Okay, all of them.
And people all just go by technical.
If you're writing say a request for quotes, how do you suggest you quantify the training to be a part of your service installation and then training somebody or a group in their staff?
Well, first of all, you got to see the part of your plan.
Yeah, if it's on the shop floor, it needs to be a joint. Somebody needs to do the technical training on the automation, and then you need the other training as well. There should be some work instructions and some training and a training plan, so that's kind of close. When it's in the office, things like this, a lot of ERP, for example, they'll have change management in the program. That's good, but it's not enough. You need somebody to do the project management, and you need just somebody to help us internally, to help assist in the cultural change as well. Because there is the people side change. We talk about aircraft, that's the biggest resistance to changes in people. It's not, most ERP systems that are upgraded, we see this all the time, they go into companies, and they just use the basic package. There's a lot of more potential in ERP. Because of the change management, they just put in the basics, and they left it that. So much resistance to change. Project management and people change are the biggest factors for success.
So going back to deliverables that are, you need to have a training plan, actually lay it out. Training, what's the plan to deliver, lay out the steps. So that's going to be the number of training, when the trainings occur. Because we want to have parallels part of it. So for example, when you're commissioning equipment, they need to be part of the commissioning, not just the experienced techs from Minneapolis who can do a big replace that doesn't work.
And typically,
That's what we're looking for.
they work in project management. They usually don't do that as a service for an ERP or other software. And then the change management portion is really minimal, and you have to be kind of get further into that detail and say how you want to solve it. You know?
Overall, this is not something we can just say, here's our FD, just take care of the company and start the growth. That's a good recipe for not a successful. It's strategic, you gotta get involved. Okay. Change the lens across the enterprise. Automation should be part of your overall business strategy versus automation for itself. You know, I got some automation, well, that's great, but what's it do? How's it help you serve your customers? How's it help you enter a new market? How's it help you make more money? How's it make jobs easier and better? Because again, we want to automate areas that area looks at and says, I really don't like this part of my job. Well, that's great. We'll find a way to do it. Again, solutions have to drive results across the entire business. We want people to see how it makes the business better.
Yeah, a couple of things very commonly we see for strategy. Speed is one. Automation helps with speed. Two is, now it's the people, people shortage. This is the gap for the people shortage as well. And the other reason is we talked about it earlier, repeatability in your processes drives higher quality, there's higher quality permits in different industry sectors such as automotive. So that's where it plays very well. To George's point, think of it long term, does it fit, and where do you?
And again, it also should free up labor to focus on things that are more fun, that you create more value. When I walk in a place and see two people picking up 5-pound boxes and walking through the back of the room and putting them on a pallet, I look at that and say, imagine doing that all day. These people are not robots themselves, the more fun stuff that we do. It's also the manufacturers telling that they can't find people in the marketplace. So again, in terms of tying up labor, a valuable resource, doing remedial tasks that automation can do much better as well. That allows them to upskill them to use something else. Seems obvious, but again, for this to work, you got to mindfully go after it. So there's an example of a growth strategy. Okay, this is if you look at it, how does this work? How does this thing work? This is way out there. That's like 3 years out. You look at here's where we start today. We look at this from a market perspective, a talent perspective, new markets we want to penetrate. Here's the automation investment. So our systems and our CapEx, how does it support our overall growth strategy for markets and people? So again, we need to show people this is later. We'll talk about the why. How does this fit with the strategy? I can spend a whole bunch of time on here. It doesn't matter. But the whole idea is integrated into compensation. How do you ever talk about automation? People worry about, well, I'm not going to make as much money, right? Well, that's okay to change your manner, isn't it? First thing you do. Remember, one thing I learned, unfortunately, if you ever watched Jurassic Park. So what was wrong with the DNA that they got in dinosaurs? Anybody remember? Just to make sense of it. Was it perfect DNA? What did they have to do? Come on, it's like cancer. Help me out here. What did they have to do? They use frog DNA to fill in the gaps. Communication's the same way. If there's a gap in communication, people make it up. And I almost guarantee you what they make up and start talking about is far worse than the truth. And so again, part of our roles as leaders, etc., is to be proactive, communicate good news, bad news. How people are impacted, because if we don't, people will chatter, and often the chatter is potentially more destructive than the truth ever can be. So that's how I got Jurassic Park communications. But to me, that's a kind of a way to illustrate people will relate. So upside to compensation, again, I saw a company do this. They put a gain sharing program in place. They went from one person per machine to one person for 4 machines. They added more machines. They grow their marketplace. They put a gain sharing program in place. People are making record amounts of overall compensation. The company's making record profits, and it's a virtuous cycle, and there's a lot of people waiting to get in. That's where you can go with this. Now, that takes a lot of magic dust to have to pull it together. That's what's possible. The whole idea is so people see that this is a good thing for me. Okay, we all worry about our ability to provide groceries for our family or education for our kids. We don't want that standing in the way of automation.
Yeah, think about it when we introduce automation. The first thing that people think about filling the gap. Who is my job? And most companies today say, we need everybody, part of our family. We're not going to displace you. We need you to fill some of these jobs that go up. Now, there's going to be less people in this area. Some people will be able to fulfill those roles. And the first we talked about, the first one was being able to do the simple things. Instead of having 4 people in this one area, you're going to have 1. And they're going to do the simple things to keep the machine going, the faults and the different resets. And you're going to have a higher level that's going to come and do the maintenance. And then doing changeovers, and then a higher level process engineer. Great opportunity for you to move up, do a training and development, and oh, by the way, you're going to make more money. Now, if you're the 2 women in the cell, you don't want those jobs, right? And the thing is that I don't want those jobs, I want something else. But there's the ability to go here, and what ends up happening is the pay level goes up. And you go up, you rise to the level of the companies. And that's what we want to get the most out of people. One of the things that we do now is leverage our employees enough. And this is a great opportunity for them to grow and really develop their organization.
So imagine announcing your expanding automation and then have new job postings go for 3 new jobs for, for automation programmers, et cetera, et cetera. You had a question?
Yes, so this compensation, thinking is also connected to the internal tech support that we talked about.
Right.
And then the other question is, can the compensation be connected to the output? To the output?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, and you're right. If you go to the next slide, it talks about compensation. Oh, sorry about that. There is a slide. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
I'll talk about the average pay that actually increases as you go. Yeah, and it can be your technology level. Now, realize that you go from in this situation, factory worker, now you're running a machine, going into a PLC, making adjustments, understanding how PLC works, who are doing different things, and knowing how to sell them. Now your skills are transferable, right? They go down the street and do the same thing themselves. We want people like that. So they have some basic knowledge of how the machine works. And then as you get into the next level up, there's maintenance. And if you do some simple maintenance, you start to understand pneumatics, hydraulics, sensors, RFID, and how all those things work. Now, this is a great place for you to play with some of the other companies as well. We want people like that because they can go.
But we do want people to have metrics they have control. We don't want a company metric that go, I have no idea what that means or how to control it. We want things that they can make a difference in that contribute towards better company members, so that they can see that they have the ability to influence their compensation. Process improvements. Have you heard this one before? Never outdated bad process. Okay, because you basically bake it right in. We've never seen that happen, right? Use a catalyst to design the process is a great way. Sometimes, if you go fast, you gotta slow down and do the work. As you can speed up even faster. I mean, that's the world story.
We talk about it quite often. People will go into an operation and they'll say, I'm going to automate this. And the first thing we say is, can we go in and take a look at the process and do a value stream out? You look at things. In lean manufacturing, it's learning to see the waste. We can see the waste so we can take the waste out. And then we look at the first variability, try to minimize the variability. And then once we do that, we're ready to automate. What you have to do, as George said, if you slow down, take a look. Just because it's a bad process doesn't mean we can improve it before we automate.
Define job role and impact of automation. These are examples, current and future. So I imagine these are job postings. And again, one of the we are with this is people help develop these. We're transparent. This isn't some secret thing that's kept in the back room that we'll talk about down the road. As we start to think about automation, get ready to plan, implement, we talk about that in advance. These are examples. Again, order entry staff, how it changes, account teams, how it might change. Again, we don't typically eliminate jobs, we eliminate functions or pieces of jobs, and we rearrange so they create more value, and hopefully they're more fun for people. And part of that's going to be elevating as well as training, so that they're impactful in those jobs.
Yeah, think about this. In manufacturing, since George and I have been around for a long time, we can talk about this. A long time ago, it used to take 20 weeks to get something out, right? We get an order in 20 weeks later, it would come out. And 4 weeks would be in the office, and 16 weeks would be manufacturing. The employee headcount would be 100 people. 20 people in the office, 80 in the factory. Today, it's not like that. Now, the factory is, the office is still 4 weeks, maybe 2.5, but still 4. Manufacturing is 4 weeks. Now you have a 100-person company. It's probably 50-50, 60-40. A lot of the automation that we're going to see in the next 10 years isn't going to be necessarily in the factory, it's going to be in the office. If you're in a service company, it's going to happen there as well. And you have to be thinking about it as you go forward. Here's a great example. So I do AP, for example, accounts payable. And I do that all day, right? I take papers and do this. And it's going to be automated in the future. Somebody still needs to take a look at the AP report at the end of the week and say, does it make sense and we need to make improvements to something go wrong. So that's going to happen here. So the impact of automation is, we talk a lot in manufacturing, it's in the plant, but it's really going to come to the office and service industries too. Next year. It's going to transform the service industries.
So you get another example. Operator 1 to senior, you had automation specialist, automation technician. You start to see how we can create growth opportunities. Because again, if you think about it, these roles can create more value and give a chance for us. I mean, it's really fun to see companies taking employees and saying, well, how can we train them so they can grow into these roles. That's again another example of win-win situation. That's automation.
So you asked about the automation technician salary, and there's 65,000 in 2019. It's probably 85,000. A good automation systems technician is really good.
Yeah.
And everybody's looking for them. And then these are the people that probably didn't do very well in high school, but they love to learn, and they love to learn how automation things work. And they got into some automation in some company, or did some tech classes. And here they are, working on servo motors, doing PLC programming, and taking like a family robots with a little joystick, getting it to move around and train it, and do it. And they're having a lot of fun. But there's a good pay. If you really like to do it, you can make it good.
Once you get there, you do well. Okay. Build employee input. Get their insights. Highlight personal relevance. Remember I talked about keeping it a secret, right? Be direct. My favorite Benny Hill. Everybody remember Benny Hill, the comedian? Okay, so he's really sick. He's upstairs, and the family doctor's making a call to him. We talk about keeping things a secret. These two guys stopping up the stairs. You see a guy take a tape measure out and going this is the doorway. He goes, I have no idea how we're going to get a casket down these stairs. I mean, here's an example. Again, if we're secret, people start to fill in the gaps and assume the worst. So again, part of this is to get their input, get their buy-in into it.
Yeah, we talked about stakeholders earlier. There was, I was bringing in the automation. I talked about the termination machines and motors. And there was a woman out there who had been flipping those motors for 30 years. And he said, Mr. Smiley, come over here. We are not going to do this for 30 years. I'm not changing. I'm not going to change it all. And I'll tell you why. This will never work because I know those motors and I know what happens. And she told me all the world's problems, right? What did I do with it? I put it on the TV. Why? Because she's going to tell me what's going on, right? Everybody's fears and everything else. Be direct, but put people on your team that are direct. Even in the office, if the answers, I'm on your team. They'll tell you everything you need to know, and what are some of the things you need to work through or some of the actions.
Once they convert, they're good as gold. All right. This is the most important. Why are we auditing? Establish a why. Very, very important. Again, and think about this, as we do lots of workshops with automation, you got to put it in the frame of mind that they are in. They have to understand the why from their perspective, like what is relevant to them. And that's why it's so important. So again, it's an opportunity for job enrichment. If you get rid of the tedious parts of our jobs, let's get rid of jobs. You can grow, you can have more fun doing it, you can grow up with the company, you can grow sideways. Again, these coworkers don't call in sick, okay? If the robot doesn't do that, doesn't leave you hanging, all right? And again, prepare them for this. Prepare them for the journey. And if you're part of it, again, it comes back to the why. And again, you want to do that up front before the automation solution arrives at your doorstep.
And think about this. We can explain the company why. We can say sustainability of the business, we need to do this, we need to grow with technology, we don't have all the workforce and stuff like that. People's mind is always, I want the stability in my life and I'm going to come in and know you're going to be here. Number one. And number two, I want to kind of have a stable work environment and I don't want to change too much. That's the hard part. But if you can convince them that stability of work is here, we need you, you're part of the family, and we need you to come to the journey, then you can connect the two lines together. And it's really their line and your line as an organization, connecting the
Okay, so it's hard to blame in front, but again, we talked about the negatives originally, and this is kind of the positives. Establish a why for automation, build in employee input, define the role, how automation should impact it, process improvements, make those particularly in advance, so we don't automate the bad. Upside the compensation, show what that is. We support the growth strategy that ties into it. We have a training plan that's put in place in front, and the operator involved in putting that together. Project team, so we know roles, responsibilities, who owns what. We don't have this stuff going on. Change management, so we understand who's got a stake in this, who's really impacted, who should know, who should be informed. And lastly, we have tech support, so once we get it in here, whatever it is, it keeps running and working. So those are, again, that's the distillation of lots of years and talking to lots of manufacturers and see it out there. Comments, questions from the group? What? 4:30 or 5 in the afternoon.
Can you go back to the ADP slide, the example that you have there for automating the office?
Let's see which one was that.
We need to do that. Especially that one.
Right here, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
We've got a bunch of folks that are, I've been with the company for 30, 35 years,
Mhm.
and the scales do not want to change, right? We can easily put like Workday or another, type of software, but I think the CFO is going to be a tough time, the change management.
Sure. Well, be deliberate. I mean, there's a lot out there on change management systems. You just Google it, to help walk through how you prepare people for that. So,
Yeah, and it's, part of it is a lot of what we talked about today, but getting them involved in some part of the change management. And it's a process. You don't want to change overnight. So we used to talk a lot about this when I was at Emerson. We have a lot of debate on the change at executive level. And then we come out of the executive meeting and we spend months on what are we going to do, how are we going to do it, what's best for the business. And then we come out and we thinking within a week, people are going to absorb the change. And they say, we're going to do this. And you're just going to tell them. People don't work that way. It takes a long time to go through the process of awareness, why it's important, and going through the why and why. So you have to work with this very simple in that process and be patient with people as you go through. They can be as long or longer the planning process than bringing the automation. We all focus on just getting the thing and the outcome for it, but that whole planning and getting people involved is a long process. And once you get them in the journey, you're going to be successful. If you don't go and get them in the journey, you're not going to be successful. And that's the hard part, right? You're going through that being methodical and doing that and being intentional. And also, don't ask for outside help. If there's anything I learned being on this side of the world versus where you are in your seats, is I should have asked for help when I was here, because a lot of times I try to do it on my own. I made all those kind of mistakes, by the way. I have lots of stories that could go on for hours, because I didn't ask for outside help. But, I'm just like, I can do it, right? Same process, we go through this, get some outside perspective and walk through people, with nothing to do with just the plan. What do you need to do there before you bring it to the others?
Yeah, that's all. Thanks.
Go back to your last slide, the 10.
Sure.
So I'm just trying to look back at what we did, and we're trying to get some automation going in the last year and a half now. We had really success. Some projects are really successful and well, and some of them not so. And I'm trying to see, where we had gaps. Certainly we didn't do a good job on number 1 and number 10, is what I see. And also the compensation part that you mentioned. Training also, I don't think we did a good job on training as well. I do believe that, we have a vendor who built a machine in Europe and he came for training and he charges for training also. We come in and they do training. But we as a corporate, we didn't train our employees were involved. I didn't explain to them why
It's
we
a soft side.
right.
And realize too, all it takes is really think what client you went out with a company, that the maintenance guy hated automation because he was worried about making him look like he wasn't on top of it, and he was going to eliminate his job. He never said that, but we finally figured it out, and we kept asking why, finally, how do we get you part of this? How do we do this down? And so every time we turned around, it was, I had the client complaining, like, you get stuck. Things can take weeks, it should be days. And we found out Jerry was his name, and finally gave me a 50 because it would be a part of the process versus being the victim.
Our problem with our Jerry maintenance is, this is just one of the job. Right? In the whole grand scheme of things, he doesn't know how important that is.
Not until he's not there.
Right.
And we don't realize how important it is. Yes.
Something to think about is you, after you're looking backwards, you can do a gap analysis, vision assessment that has really elements in it, and you add code. They actually go through and understand from the program, what are some of the steps you did, what are some of the steps you didn't, and you rate yourself and you can see today. So that's something to think about. Because you're going to do it again. And we always want to learn from mistakes, not to make the same ones again, right? And we want to get better, and that's criticism.
Well, we'll be around afterwards if we have any questions or comments. Appreciate your attendance so late.